Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. We're going to start with our feature tonight, Robert Earle, who died recently at the age of 93. Robert Earle was the host of General Electric College Bowl on NBC, a show that ran from the late 1950s to 1970. It started after the quiz show scandals, and it featured two college teams competing against each other in a quiz show situation, and the questions were hard. And they give it sort of a college football-like atmosphere. The college football scores would come on after GE College Bowl on Saturday afternoon, so there was sort of marching music, and at halftime there was a halftime show where the challenger school would bring a little film about their campus. It was entertaining, fast-paced, and informative. Much faster pace, by the way, than something like Jeopardy today. And part of that fast pace was due to Robert Earle, who could read questions and handle the pressure very adeptly. He wasn't the first host of College Bowl. The first host was Allen Ludden, but Allen Ludden left after a couple of years to become the host of a new game show called Password. I wonder whatever happened to that. Anyway, when Allen Ludden left the show, Robert Earle auditioned. He was a GE employee, and he auditioned against a lot of seasoned professionals, and he beat them all out, and it was a good decision. There aren't many tapes of College Bowl left. They were all destroyed, but here's a portion of one of them that happened to get saved, and it happens to be the most legendary College Bowl episode of all time. This is from March 1966.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
Match wits with the champions in America's favorite question and answer game. Live from New York City, the Intercollegiate Battle of Brains. Now in its 8th season, the award-winning General Electric College Bowl. Presenting outstanding varsity scholars throughout America and brought to you each week by the General Electric Company. Today's contest brings together this bright team of varsity scholars from Agnes Scott College, Decatur, Georgia. And our current champions, the varsity scholars from Princeton University, Princeton, New Jersey. And now, the man with the questions, Robert Earle.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the General Electric College Bowl. May I present the teams? First, the challengers, the varsity scholars from Agnes Scott College.
Catherine Bell, Columbus, Ohio.
Melinda Snow, Rome, Georgia.
Karen Gerald, Norfolk, Virginia.
Betty Butler, Nashville, Tennessee.
That's Agnes Scott College. And our current champions, the varsity scholars from Princeton University.
Jim Kostman, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Steve Chernikoff, Brooklyn, New York.
Steve Kaler, Los Angeles, California.
Frank Ward, Margate City, New Jersey.
And that's Princeton University. Okay, these are our teams. Now, I'd like to have you meet the coaches. First, from Agnes Scott College, here is Associate Professor of English, Dr. Eleanor Hutchins. Dr. Hutchins. And from Princeton University, here is Assistant Professor of German, Mr. Kimberly Sparks. Coaches, good luck to your teams. Our game begins directly after this message from General Electric.
Now, the reason that this is the most famous episode of College Bowl is, well, did you hear the contestants? You've got the challengers from Agnes Scott, a small girls' school in Decatur, Georgia, up against the champions, Princeton University, the haughtiest of the haughty in the Ivy League. Princeton was still all male then, and those kids in their suits looked like they couldn't be beaten. In fact, one of them thought that Agnes Scott was a riding school down south, and the look on the faces of the Princeton men at the beginning of the show was, why did they even bring these girls from down south in to compete against us? So if you were betting at that point, who would you bet would win that episode of College Bowl? And in fact, it started out the way everyone expected. Princeton went out to a big lead early. Then the girls from Agnes Scott got their first question right and got their bearing. And by halftime, they were actually winning the game. And all of a sudden, the Princeton kids looked like they knew they had a contest on their hands. They still looked reasonably unfazed. But if you watch the second half and watch the faces on the kids on both sides, you realize this was no longer a friendly competition. This was now a blood sport. And in fact, with 2 minutes to go, the Princeton men pulled out to what looked like an insurmountable lead, and their faces relaxed as they thought they had the game won. But because Robert Earle could read questions quickly, the Agnes Scott girls, who knew the pressure was on, thought they still had a chance. And what followed in those last 2 minutes was as exciting as any sporting event I've ever seen.
I have a 20-pointer coming up now. Here's the toss-up for 10 points. Name the 19th century novel in which an embittered bachelor has his hoard of gold stolen from him.
Princeton Ward.
Silas Marner.
Yes, Silas Marner by George Eliot. All right, Princeton. Most people would say the man is father of the child. For 20 points, what poet wrote "The child is father of the man"?
Wordsworth.
Yes, In the Rainbow. That's right for 20 points. Now you're playing for a 20-pointer. Here's the toss-up for 10 points. Tell me, what political technique was practiced and preached by Thoreau, according to the title?
Agnes Scott Butler.
Civil disobedience.
Yes, civil disobedience. That's right. 10 points. All right, Agnes Scott. The so-called sonata form, used for single movements of sonatas, symphonies, and so on, consists essentially of 3 sections. The first is the exposition. The second is the development. For 20 points, name the third.
Recapitulation.
Yes, recapitulation. That's right. For 20 points, now you're playing for a 20-pointer. Here's the toss-up. This body has sat as a court only 12 times in 170...
Agnes Scott Bell.
The United States Senate.
Yes, the United States Senate, sitting as a court of impeachment. All right, Agnes Scott, for 20 points. In which of Dickens' works do we find Wardle, Winkle, Weller, Dodson, and Fogg?
Pickwick Papers.
Pickwick Papers.
Yes, the Pickwick Papers for 20 points. Another 20-pointer coming up. Here's the toss-up for 10 points. Who first postulated the parallel postulate?
Princeton Cussman.
Euclid.
Yes, Euclid. 10 points. All right, Princeton. On October 7th, 1571, Spanish and Venetian ships under Don Juan of Austria won an important naval battle, completely defeating the Turkish
The
fleet.
Battle of Lepanto.
It was the Battle of Lepanto for 20 points. I have another 20-pointer coming up now. Here's the toss-up. An infuriated husband hurls a lamp at his wife, and down comes the dramatic second-act curtain of a play by Strindberg for 10 points. Which play?
Agnes Scott Snow.
The Ghost Sonata.
No, can you take it, Princeton?
Princeton Cussman.
Miss Julie.
No, it's the father. I still have a 20-pointer waiting. Here's another toss-up. Lavoisier laid the basis for the formulation of the law of the conservation of matter. For 10 points, who is said to have formulated the law of conservation of mass and energy?
Agnes Scott Butler.
Einstein.
It was Einstein. 10 points, and here's the bonus. Bucephalus and Roan Barbary were steeds. For 20 points, what were Balmung and Durandal?
Sword.
Yes, swords belonging to Siegfried and Roland. That's it. Time's up. The game is over. We'll validate the final score. And in a moment, announce the winner and award the scholarship grants. It's official. The final score today is Princeton University 215, Agnes Scott College 220. Agnes Scott is the winner. And for carrying home the honors today, Agnes Scott College will receive a $1,500 scholarship grant from the General Electric Company, and to Princeton University goes General Electric's $500 scholarship grant. And teams, what can I say? Certainly one of the most exciting contests we've ever had here.
Agnes Scott won the game by 5 points on the last-second question answered by Karen Giroux, who happened to be blind, which meant she couldn't see the clock. She was the only person in the entire studio who didn't know that there was only 1 second left. Karen Giroux also answered their first question, which happened to get them on the board, and the answer was don't give up the ship. She became a Navy lawyer and is said to be the hero of Bill Curry, the former Green Bay Packer and Baltimore Colt, who became a coach at Georgia Tech and Alabama. The girls from Agnes Scott believed they were as good as anybody. They practiced hard, and they were unfazed by Princeton, and they pulled off one of the great upsets in bowl history. And I mean bowl of any sport. To me, that's female empowerment. To introduce our closing subject tonight, there's this.
You all know the doctor? Dr. John, Mac Rebenak. Come on, Mac. Say thankfulness to the band and all the fellas.
Well, that was Robbie Robertson of the band at the Last Waltz concert introducing Mac Rebenak, a.k.a. Dr. John, who died recently at the age of 77. For 60 years, Dr. John was one of the embodiments of New Orleans music. He was a guitar player, then became a piano player after part of his finger was shot off in a fight. Here's WWL-TV in New Orleans to talk about Dr. John.
He famously sang about being in the right place at the wrong time, but Dr. John's more than half-century career proved he was more often in the right place at the right times.
Been in the right place, but been a wrong time.
Dr. John won 6 Grammys, was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and became an icon in the music industry, and an ambassador for the New Orleans sound across the world. Still, in one interview with us, he said he tried not to let success go to his head.
I don't think about any of that. You know what? The stuff I think about is like, right now, I'm thinking about music. What I'm doing, next. What's dead, that don't matter, any of that. It's like, that's the kind of stuff you get. If I let my brains ever go in that direction, I'm going to have an extra wipe. I already got plexus too many. I already got wiped brain cells that's useless. So I got to keep focused on other stuff.
Dr. John was born in New Orleans, where he was better known by his given name, Mac Rebennack. He began his musical career as a guitarist and session musician on recordings by fellow musical greats like Professor Longhair, Art Neville, and Frankie Ford. A move to Los Angeles in the 60s had him backing Sonny and Cher, the Rolling Stones, and Aretha Franklin.
Walk on gilded splinters.
But soon he developed his own persona as Dr. John, the Night Tripper. It was a mix of voodoo funk and psychedelic rock that paid homage to his New Orleans roots. But he admitted his gravelly New Orleans voice wasn't that of a singer's. His debut album, Greekery, changed all that and put him on the road to stardom. It was a rocky road at times, and he admitted, like many other rock and roll stars, that he dabbled in drugs.
Such a night. Such a night.
But the hits kept on coming. From Such a Night,
Another bride, another broom,
to his 1989 collaboration with Ricky Lee Jones for Makin' Whoopee, which won him a Grammy, the first in a long line of Grammy Awards. His voice became one of the most recognizable in the world, featured on everything from cartoons and kid shows to Popeye's chicken commercials.
I love that chicken from Popeye.
As he reached the top of the music world, he always gave credit to his New Orleans roots and the giants who came before him.
And I'd like to thank Professor Longhair. I'd like to thank Huey Piano Smith, James Brooke, and all the great piano players in New Orleans, all the great musicians in New Orleans, and God bless y'all. Thank you.
Eric Paulson, Eyewitness News.
Play a couple of Dr. John's most familiar songs. Here's his biggest hit from 1973, made it into the top 10.
I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. I done said the right thing, but it must have used the wrong line. I've been on the right trail, but I must have used the wrong car. Hit us in a bad place, and I wonder what's good for. I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. My head is in a bad place, but we have such a good time.
Here's the one that broke them up, the Last Waltz concert.
Such a night, it's such a night. Sweet confusion under the moonlight. Such a night, such a night. To steal away, the time is right.
Here's a New Orleans classic.
Echo, 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 ande. Davo fino andande, davo finande. My starboard to your starboard, sitting on the bayou. My starboard to your starboard, mo set your tail on fire. Talk about it now, it now. Echo, echo, ande.
And one of my favorites.
After you're gone and left me crying, after you're gone and no denying, you feel blue, you gon' feel sad. You don't miss the best love in ULA.
Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. As a final tribute to Dr. John, we're going to play the song that Eddie Cantor made famous in 1928 and then earned Dr. John his first Grammy in 1990, Makin' Whoopee.
My pa played me a record of Piney Brown Blues by Big Joe Turner. That's when I had a hallucination I was going to be a piano player. My daddy brought me to the first time I was at a recording session. He knew Cosmo Matessa that owned the recording studio, and it was behind a shoe shine. I remember Huey Piano Smith playing on a Little Richard record early on.
Another bride, another broom, another sunny, honeymoon, another season, and that's the reason for making whoopee.